Picture this, a guy who runs a chainsaw for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week through dense forest in all weather on terrain that would destroy most equipment. That guy goes home on Friday, walks into his garage, and pulls out a chainsaw to clear his own land. What brand does he grab? Not the biggest one with the biggest marketing budget, not the one his neighbor bought at the hardware store, and probably not the one you have sitting in your shed right now. Professional loggers are the most ruthless chainsaw testers on the planet. They don't read reviews. They don't care about color or branding. They care about one thing. Does this saw start on the first pull at 6 in the morning and keep cutting until the sun goes down? And after years of running every major brand on the job, when they spend their own money on a saw for their own land, they keep coming back to 3 names. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly which 3, and more importantly, why. Before we get to the brands, let's talk about why you should care what a logger thinks in the first place. Because there's a massive difference between a YouTube reviewer who runs a saw for 30 minutes in their backyard and a professional feller who puts 200 hours on a machine every single month. Loggers work in conditions that expose every weakness a chainsaw has. Cold starts in sub-freezing temperatures, dusty, resin-clogged air filters, bars buried deep in wet hardwood that pinches and binds, chains that hit hidden rocks and need resharpening twice a day. If there's a flaw in the oiling system, the bar wear, the clutch, the carburetor, a logger finds it within the first season. Most homeowners never push a saw hard enough to discover those problems. They just think they bought a good saw. And here's what makes their personal choice even more valuable. When a logger buys a saw for his own land, he's not buying for the job. He's buying for the long haul. He knows how much a shop visit costs. He knows what parts are impossible to find after 5 years. He knows which brands dealerships actually stock inventory and which ones make you wait 3 weeks for a carb kit. So when a guy who's run Stihl, Husqvarna, Echo, Dolmar, and half a dozen other brands professionally walks into a dealer and pulls out his own wallet, that's the most honest product review you'll ever get. No affiliate link, no sponsored content, just experience. All right, so which brand does he grab first? The answer might actually surprise you because the number 1 pick isn't the most famous name in the room. Let's start there. If you ask 10 professional loggers what saw they keep at home, more than half will say Husqvarna, and the reason isn't brand loyalty, it's range. Husqvarna makes a chainsaw for everything, from a lightweight 14-inch limbing saw to the legendary 3120 XP, which runs a 6-foot bar and is literally one of the most powerful production chainsaws on earth. That kind of lineup means a logger doesn't have to compromise when he's buying for personal use. He picks exactly the right tool for his land. The 455 Rancher is the model that comes up most often in logger circles for personal property work. It's a 55cc powerhouse with Husqvarna's X-Torque engine technology, which reduces fuel consumption while increasing torque. In the lower RPM range, that matters on your own land because you're not running the saw wide open all day. You're making calculated cuts, felling a tree here, bucking firewood there. You want a saw that pulls cleanly at mid-throttle. The 455 Rancher does that better than almost anything else in its class. What loggers also love about Husqvarna is the ergonomics. The balance point on their pro models is dialed in from decades of feedback from actual forestry workers. When you're spending an afternoon clearing storm damage on your property, a poorly balanced saw turns into a full-body workout after the first hour. Husqvarna addressed that problem a long time ago, and in 2025 and 2026, their battery platform, specifically the 540i XP, has reached a point where it genuinely competes with gas for mid-duty land work without the emissions and noise. Bottom line, Husqvarna is the saw loggers choose when they want one machine that can handle whatever their property throws at them, versatile, powerful, and built to last decades with basic maintenance. But here's the thing, there's one brand that loggers argue is even more durable than Husqvarna, and it's the brand that literally invented the chainsaw. Don't go anywhere. Andreas Stihl invented the chainsaw in 1929. He built it specifically for loggers in the German Black Forest to solve one problem, making timber work faster and less physically brutal. Nearly 100 years later, Stihl is still the dominant brand in professional forestry worldwide. And that history is not just a marketing line, it means Stihl has had nearly a century to get everything right. The reason loggers trust Stihl on their own land comes down to two things: longevity and the support network. On longevity, Stihl's engineering means their saws simply outlast the competition, carburetors that don't need constant adjustment, anti-vibration systems that hold up after years of hard use, ignition systems that start reliably even when a saw has been sitting in a cold garage for months. There are loggers running 20-year-old Stihl MS-34s and MS-38s that still cut better than new saws from budget brands. On the support network, this is the part nobody talks about enough. Stihl is the only major chainsaw manufacturer that builds its own bars and chains in-house. Every other brand sources those components from third parties, primarily Oregon. That means Stihl controls the entire quality chain from the engine to the tip of the bar. And because Stihl sells exclusively through authorized dealers, not big box stores, those dealers are specialists. They carry parts, they know the product, and they can fix your saw in a day instead of shipping it to a regional service center. For a logger who lives 45 minutes from the nearest town, that dealer network is a lifeline. When a bar gets damaged or a chain snaps mid-job on your own property, you need parts you can actually get. Stihl makes that possible more consistently than anyone else. So we have Husqvarna for versatility, Stihl for longevity, but the third brand on this list, this is the one loggers won't always admit to in public, but it's the one they keep buying with their own money. Stay with me. Echo is the dark horse on this list. It doesn't have the century-old heritage of Stihl. It doesn't have the same premium reputation as Husqvarna. But if you spend enough time talking to working loggers about what they keep at home, Echo keeps showing up, and the reason is brutally practical. Echo is a Japanese-owned company, but many of their chainsaws sold in North America are manufactured domestically with a mix of American and imported components. Their pro-grade models, particularly the CS590 Timberwolf and the CS620P, are built to commercial standards at a price point that makes Husqvarna and Stihl look expensive. And when you're buying a saw for personal property use, not commercial work, that value calculation starts to shift. A logger who already owns a $900 Stihl MS461 for the job doesn't need to spend another $700 on a personal saw. Echo gives him 80% of the performance at 60% of the cost. But price alone doesn't explain why serious professionals trust Echo. The real reason is reliability over time, especially on intermittent use. This is where Echo has a clear edge. Their saws are extremely forgiving when they sit unused. The carburetor design resists gumming. The primer bulb system makes cold starts straightforward even after months of storage. A logger who only fires up his personal saw 8 or 10 times a year needs a machine that starts reliably every single time, not one that needs a carb clean after sitting in the garage. The CS590 Timberwolf in particular has built a cult following in logger and forestry worker communities precisely for this reason. It starts, it cuts, it keeps going. The 5-year consumer warranty, one of the best in the industry, adds a layer of confidence for personal use where you're not running the saw commercially. Now that you know the 3 brands, there's one more thing every logger knows that most homeowners never figure out, and it might be the most important part of this entire video. Here's the truth that professional loggers understand and most homeowners miss completely. The brand matters less than how you maintain what you buy. A poorly maintained steel will let you down faster than a well-maintained Echo, and vice versa. The loggers who swear by these three brands aren't doing it blindly. They're doing it because they've learned exactly how to keep these machines running. Chain sharpness is the #1 factor that separates a logger's experience from a homeowner's. A dull chain makes the saw work harder, heats up the bar and oil system, increases kickback risk, and burns fuel faster. Professional loggers sharpen their chains constantly, sometimes twice a day in heavy use. On your own land, you should be checking chain sharpness every time the saw comes out. A sharp chain on a mid-range Echo will outcut a dull chain on a top-of-the-line Husqvarna every single time. Bar and chain oil is the second thing loggers never compromise on. Running low on oil, even briefly, causes irreversible wear to the bar groove and sprocket nose. Every saw on this list, Husqvarna, Stihl, Echo, has an oil window or level indicator. Check it before every use. It takes 3 seconds, and it's the difference between a bar that lasts 3 years and one that lasts 15. Air filter maintenance is third. Logging environments are full of sawdust, debris, and fine particles that clog filters fast. On your own land, you might not hit those extremes, but cleaning or replacing the air filter every season is non-negotiable. A restricted air filter leans the carburetor out, causes overheating, and can score the cylinder, damage that no warranty covers. The loggers who buy these three brands and keep them running for 20 years aren't doing anything magical. They sharpen, they oil, they clean. The brand gives you the foundation. The maintenance gives you the longevity. So there you have it. 3 brands. 3 very different reasons why professional loggers keep coming back to them on their own land. Husqvarna for versatility and range, Stihl for longevity and dealer support, Echo for reliability, cold start dependability, and honest value. These aren't brands that got popular because of advertising. They got popular because they earned it. One logger, one season, one piece of land at a time. If you're in the market for a chainsaw and you want to buy what the professionals actually trust, you now know exactly where to look. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 3 brands do you run on your property and why. I read every single one. See you in the next video.